Good morning. This is Susan of the North, aka Susan Hintz Epstein, author and rune intuitive, reading the runes for Sunday, December 1st through December 7th. So we come into the final stages of the year. Um, the first rune for Sunday, the first, NAUTHIZ. This is the rune of need, limitation, and constraint. That can apply on many different levels, from physical life to your personal life to the environment you find yourself in. I was reading the news this morning. There's another cold front, cold snow, deep snow, especially near Buffalo, New York, coming through from the west. That could impact many people and has in Pennsylvania as well as that area of New York State. This can come in as I was doing the finances today. This is one of those things that I'm dealing with, and other people as well, um, as inflation continues to go up, and I think it will continue to go up under this new president-elect. We have to watch our budgets and decide where we can cut back and where we can't cut back and what we need. And there's another homeless trend in the United States. So we need to be careful of our own welfare, our own livelihood. And if we have extra to help others, reach out and do that. For Monday, the 2nd of December, I'm jumping too far ahead. For the 2nd of December, we draw the rune BERKANO. BERKANO is the feminine rune. It's about birth and death and the roles women play in between. Traditionally, we were taking care of the families, acting as midwives to one another. It was a long ago, it was a very different scenario for the feminine than it is today. And we're still caught up in that struggle between the rising of the feminine energy and the clingy energy of the patriarchy, which doesn't want to give up its sense of power in any hurry. But really, what humanity is will benefit from the most is for the divine feminine and the divine masculine to come into equanimity, which means each of us balancing our own personal powers to make life better for each other. So, this is the rune because it involves often children and childbearing. It's the rune of nurturing, self nourishment as well. When you do too many things for others, when you take on the role of caretaking too much, you burn out. So there is a delicate balance sometimes between what you do to take care of yourself and how you balance your time in giving care to others. And if you're a parent, teach your kids to take care of themselves. There's no sense in burning yourself out, and then when you are an empty nester, you have nothing to come home to because you haven't nourished yourself. That's the rune for Monday, December 2nd. For December 3rd, we drew the rune INGUZ, or Ing. Ing is often equated with the god Freyr. It's a rune of masculine fertility, and the men were considered the ones to plant the seeds, which of course the women gestated, but it's a rune not only of conception, but of how do you handle your creative powers. Things gestate within us until we decide to give them expression or not. And we may run an idea, we might have the idea up here, but we might run it by all of our chakras, beginning with the root chakra to see if it has practicality in earth time. Is it something we want to give energy to? Is it something we want to give will and perseverance to, and something we love enough to keep working at? So it may involve an idea that you're thinking about, and you just need to sit with it for a while and decide if it's something you want to follow through on. On Wednesday, we have the warrior rune, but it is reversed. This rune is one I often associate with a spiritual warrior, connecting as it is to the god Tyr, and the oldest god known to humanity is Tyr. TEIWAZ, Juice, Tus, Juice. This is where we get our word for deity. And when it relates to the spiritual warrior, this is a individual who goes out of their way to hold within themselves their best integrity. Today may be a day where you find your integrity challenged. Or and when this rune does not relate to the spiritual warrior necessarily, it could relate to a wounded warrior, to someone who has come back from war and has suffered mental trauma and needs loving support. This is TEIWAZ for Wednesday, the 4th of December. For Thursday, we have drawn the rune WUNJO reversed. And whereas upright, WUNJO is joy, when it's reversed, it's suffering. We don't know joy unless we know suffering. And we wouldn't know suffering without joy. We wouldn't have a contrast. This rune reversed today could relate to the interpretation of yesterday's reversed TEIWAZ rune as a suffering warrior. It could relate to suffering because of not being within your own integrity yesterday with that rune of reverse TEIWAZ. It could just mean that we are taking note of the suffering in the world, and there is an increased fear among many of the people who voted for Kamala Harris of things going from bad to worse under Mr. Trump. So we're dealing with, I'm not going to judge that whether it's going to happen or not. I am a builder of bridges, not division. But what I am saying is that there is an increase in fear and extremism of judgment in some people, and that we need to learn to get over our own suffering, because there are things in the world that we cannot control. There are things in the world we can control, usually ourselves. So that is my advice for dealing with the disappointing, for many of us, results of the election. But we have to work with what is stock of what we can do to keep the good moving forward, because America is not just a country of wealthy Republicans. America is also the country of the civil rights movement of the 60s, of the effort to see things in a spiritual way beyond the material, and not to get stuck in greed and corporate greed and so many of the ills that beset our society today. We also have much goodness, much light, and much wisdom to share. And we were also home of a lot of good in this country. I'm not going to write it off. I'm not going to run away from dealing with the other stuff that we have to face. And on Friday, maybe as a result of that attitude, I've just sort of laid it on a bit thick. It's the Rune LaGouge. This is water. This is flow. Things flowing into new forms. So there is going to be a change. There's going to be a pickup in the pace of life to make things better for yourselves, for ourselves in the flow of life, no matter what's going on. We can always, as we have this in Saturday's rune, the 7th of December. This is reaching as high as you can for your happiness. We may always fall short because things never quite suit our idea of what perfect happiness is. But there is such a thing as finding happiness in the ordinary, finding happiness in the day-to-day. You know, I have been financially good and I have been financially poor in my life. I know both aspects of it. And there is so much heart among people who lack, let's say, financial resources. Not that poverty isn't a degradation or a detriment to a better life, but of all the people who are so willing to share, as people who come together because they are surviving. They give to each other. There's a generosity among them that I don't always see in the wealthy class. So we have to look at what is good in our lives. What is good in my day? I was preparing a little bit for my runes as oracles on Renee Baribeau's Winds Spirit I Am Symposium this year. Her theme is Oracle Power because she's just released her new Winds of Spirit card deck, and it's beautiful. Look it up online and get yourself one. But I think the point I was making is that I've been through a period of time when my husband was ill with dementia and passed, and had to do the caretaking and the financial wrangling, and all the while accompanied by an apprehension of the grief that was coming. And you rise up through it. You rise up through it. And this is the point I was going to make. I got sidetracked by my own. Is that when you are going through things like that, your existence sort of narrows itself down to the day to day. So I really learned appreciation in that time for what I had. I had some extended time with him because the dementia is it's not a quick death. I had some time. We had time to say things that we weren't able to say because we were both too guarded, because we were both damaged growing up. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in, relationships to uncover, but we could fully appreciate our caring for each other and learning to appreciate what I had. I have a home, I have a shelter, I have food on the table. I have, at this time, two pets who make my day so full. And even though it's cold, I'm warm. I have enough warm clothing. And there's so many people today who don't have that. A couple of months ago, I was out shopping and I saw 4 or 5 homeless fellows. And my heart moved me to do something for them. And we were close to next to a Burger King. So it was easy for me. I had money that month to go and purchase some meal cards that I went and I gave them. And they told me that they were homeless veterans. They're just trying to find their way. One of them was a wounded warrior, and they were just so grateful for that small act of kindness. And so this is an easy way that you can share kindness with your fellow people. If you just keep a few extra meal cards in your wallet, you can give someone if they need something. Anyway, we're trying to find our way through a lot of storms, so many of us. And I think it's important to remember that you can be the calm in your own storm. You don't have to let your anxiety rule you. I know that sometimes it can be overwhelming. I experience that too. But what I try to do when that happens is I either start pacing because that's meeting my physical goal of meeting 10,000 steps a day, or I sit down and I breathe. Either way, my mind is focused on an activity and off of the repetitive mental stuff of worry and fear. And you can just, whatever you're in the middle of, stop and breathe for a minute. If you're in the middle of a work day and the boss is hounding you, you can still stop and breathe for a minute. It doesn't matter. Take your time in those moments that you need to find your calm and your positivity so that you can go forward without the stress that accompanies some of this negative thinking. Anyway, I could go on in that vein all day, but I think I've said all that I needed to for the moment. So I just want to wish you a blessed rune week ahead. Use the messages inherent within the runes to take stock of your day and meet whatever is in it with fortitude, grace, and calm. I'm Susan Hintz Epstein, aka Susan of the North, and I will see you again next week for next week's weekly rune overview.